Hey there, guys. So I want to thank you for joining today's live stream. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to join the live stream today because I am doing things a little bit different today. Uh, I decided to sort of change it up and sort of do my stream here on my Facebook profile to sort of add, more engagement and sort of more feedback from you guys who may not necessarily be in my online fitness group. So if you're not a part of that, so another thing I want to do here is to sort of mention that that's a great resource to have where you can learn about all of my sort of my fitness stuff. Any of the live streams I do, I usually do them on that Facebook group to sort of create engagement and to create a community. So if you want to learn how to join that, you can feel free to reach out to me on there. I have hundreds of members on that group right now, so it is growing and I really am trying to create a community around that group. So definitely check that out. Another thing is I have a actual Facebook business profile. If you want to learn about that too, I can send you the link on how you can check that out. But sort of wanted to mention that before I get started because the reason why I'm doing it here is to sort of go into a broader audience and share with you guys some of the information I have and that you may not know if you've not been a part of my group or you've not sort of seen any of my live streams. And so I want to put it here front and center so you guys can check this out. So what I'm talking about today can be a pretty broad subject and it can relate to a lot of different people, especially the type of clients that I usually work with. And that all has to do with muscle gain. So what I'm going to be talking about today is basically the tools as it relates to muscle gain and sort of explaining those different tools. So I'm going to talk primarily about somewhat like exercise modalities, basically different types of equipment to use as it relates to muscle gain is sort of going to be the first part, and then towards the end I'm going to talk about how different things that you can do outside of the gym as it relates to muscle gain. So this is going to be quite a bit of different sort of content or quite a bit of content I'm going to be discussing today. So sort of keep that in mind. Um, Before I get started, let me mention one thing. Tomorrow on YouTube, I'm going to be actually expanding on this topic. So I've been doing YouTube live streams as well. That's sort of an expansion of what I do here on Facebook with the live streams. So definitely check that out as well. It's going to be an expansion of what I talk about today. So if you want to learn about that, feel free to reach out as well. But let's go ahead and get started on what we're talking about today as it relates to the tools for muscle gain. So muscle gain, of course, requires multiple tools in order to succeed and see the results that you want. As I've mentioned in the past, when it comes to fat loss and muscle gain, there's very there's basically similarities and differences to those particular goals in mind. The reason why I'm mentioning those two is those are primarily the main goals that people usually mention, especially when I talk with people or talk with a potential client. That's usually what they mention is that they're either pursuing muscle gain or fat loss. And these two sort of goals in mind have different aspects to them, but they do have some similarities as well. So let's go ahead and focus. We're going to focus today primarily on muscle gain because I could go off on a tangent on the differences between the two. But we're going to try to stay focused here on muscle gain. So tools used for muscle gain depend on your goals. So when we go through the various tools that can be used in order to lead you to muscle gain, ultimately it depends on where you are at or in your fitness journey and your ability level. So that's another thing to keep in mind is when you start out, and I've mentioned this in the past, you've got to start out small and you've got to start out by mastering basic movement patterns, especially with the clients that I work with. When I create a plan, you're not going to be starting out immediately weightlifting. And that's something to keep in mind that if you do start out a plan, or maybe if you work out with a trainer, anything of that nature, it's very fundamental. You can't just go into weightlifting instantly. It's very fundamental that you master the basic movement patterns and sort of know what you're supposed to do and how to stay stable, how to be aware of your posture, how to be aware of muscle imbalances. And that's a big thing with me is to always focus on that stability aspect of it first, at least for a couple weeks or a month or so, and then move on to these more dynamic workouts and workouts that require, if you're working towards a muscle gain, you're going to work towards, lifting weights and resistance training. So that's something to keep in mind is that you have to master the basic movement patterns to start out. But again, the tools that you use are all going to vary depending on what your goal is in mind. So again, like I mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about exercise modalities, which is basically different types of equipments that's used in order to help you reach your goal. So dumbbells is the first thing. Dumbbells are a classic muscle building tool that allow for a wide range of exercises. They can be used for isolation exercises such as bicep curl, tricep extensions, as well as compound exercises such as squats and lunges. So with dumbbells, there is somewhat of a difference with these than it's related to barbells. So with dumbbell, with dumbbells, you're focusing primarily on holding a weight in your hand versus a barbell where you have to use two hands in order to perform the motion. So with dumbbells, it requires a lot of coordination, is the way that I could describe it, because you are doing a lot of different movement patterns without with a lot of range of motion, and you've got a lot of space to work with. So these are one of the most fundamental things to use, especially for muscle building. However, I've mentioned this in the past as well. When you start out with, if you're starting out with weightlifting or you're getting adjusted, like I mentioned, you got to start small. And so, what you need to do first is to focusing on mastering basic patterns, having it being related to body weight, and then sort of move to strength training machines. So, strength training machines is another thing too, and I don't necessarily have a slide for it, but it's not, I mean, it can still be used for muscle gain, but it's not as dynamic. You have a little more of a limited range of motion. And the way that I can describe a strength training machine is basically like a machine that does a specific pattern. Like you have the bicep curl machine, it does that particular pattern. There's no other exercises that you can do with it. It is primarily focused on that pattern. So that's the difference with training machines versus when you're using a modality like a dumbbell is that the dumbbell is going to require more range of motion. It's going to sort of require that coordination. So it's going to be more dynamic and it's really going to help you more to getting to your goal because you're using more of those muscles. Whereas if you're using a strength training machine, it's going to be more isolated and more, you know, limited range of motion with a particular exercise. So that's something to keep in mind. But dumbbells are one of the most important fundamental exercise modalities when it comes to, muscle gain. So barbells. Barbells is another classic tool for building muscle. They're especially useful for compound exercises such as deadlifts, squats, and bench presses. So like I've got mentioned here, compound exercises is a big thing with barbells because whereas you have dumbbells that are primarily targeting or more of an oscillating sort of instrument, I guess you'd say, barbells are more compound in that they're going to allow you to sort of target multiple muscles all at once. So, for example, when you got a squat, you're going to be using more muscles in your legs. You've got your quads, your glutes, your hamstrings, things like that. You're using a lot of different muscles when you're doing a particular exercise. Same thing if you're doing a deadlift, you're using more muscles. It's not just isolating a particular muscle. So, another thing is the chest, or like chest presses. When you're doing those, you're using a lot of different muscles that not only include your chest muscle, which is the target muscle, it's also involving somewhat of your arms, your triceps, and then your back as well. It has to use those different muscles in order to assist in that motion. So with barbell exercises, if you're wanting to target multiple muscle groups all at once, that's a great sort of way to go towards because it's going to be more compound focus, whereas you got the dumbbells that's more isolated focused, where you can focus on one side of the body, or like again going back to the dumbbells. So I went forward. So going back to the dumbbells again, they're oscillating one side. So like for example, this guy down here at the bottom, he's doing like a renegade row. So you're going to have to focus on one side of your body. It's more oscillating with that motion versus when you're doing a barbell, because you have to pay attention to everything that's going on. So it's compound. Oscillating is more focusing on one thing, whereas compound is more dynamic. It's focusing on multiple muscles, and then the oscillating is focusing on a single muscle. So if that makes sense, that's basically the two major differences between the dumbbell and barbell. However, they both can be essential to muscle gain, and they both can be integrated together into a workout routine. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So another thing that is a great tool that you may not really think about all too often is the pull-up bar. So a pull-up bar is a great tool for building back and arm muscles. Pull-ups and chin-ups are challenging exercises that can help build strength and muscle mass. So if you're wanting to sort of gain more strength in your back and arms, that's what the pull-ups are going to target. If you're wanting, going back to sort of the barbell, if you're wanting to build your legs, barbell is sort of a great option. Building your arms, dumbbells is more of a great option for that. So each of these sort of instruments have a particular sort of, basically a target muscle that they really help build. So you've got these pull-up bars that's going to focus on your back and arms more. However, you can do multiple exercises, and that's not to say that you only focus on your back and arms with a pull-up bar. You can also do ab exercises with a pull-up bar, like leg raises. There's tons of different things that you can do. However, what I'm mentioning here is that it's going to be focused primarily on your back and arms. It's really essential. It could be an essential component of helping you build your back and arms. Same with a barbell. Barbell is not only focused on legs, or not only focused on chest. You can do multiple different exercises, but it is really a strong method to use if you're focusing on building your chest or building your legs. Same with dumbbells. Dumbbells don't have to just be focused on arms. However, they can be an essential part of your workout routine, and adding, arm workouts into your routine based on dumbbells, because a lot of people use dumbbells when they want to gain more muscle in their arms. So all of these different modalities may target one specific, you may think of, when you think of a dumbbell, you automatically think of a bicep curl, but there's so many other different exercises. What I'm trying to explain here is that just because one exercise is very good for one particular motion doesn't mean that you can't do other different types of exercises, and that's what I'm trying to explain. But basically, the reason why I'm targeting and talking about these specific muscles is that these types of exercises are great for these types of modalities in order to gain muscle and to focus on that muscle gain goal. So that's what I'm trying to explain here. Now, it sort of sounds confusing because I'm kind of going back and forth, but I'm trying to explain that these are primarily focusing on muscle gain. What are the different types of exercises you can do for muscle gain with these specific sort of modalities? So we sort of talked about modalities. So we've talked about your dumbbells, your barbells, pull-up bars. So those types of equipment are really good for muscle gain. So when you have a workout routine and a workout designed towards your goal, you sort of have the gym aspect together. You know what you need to be doing at the gym. And I'm going to explain a little bit more about workout design related to muscle gain tomorrow with my YouTube live stream. However, because I'm mainly just focusing on the tools today. So those are the tools for the gym aspect of your workout routine. So what we're going to do next is focus on the tools that you need to use outside of the gym to help and assist with reaching your muscle gain goal. So the first thing here is pretty self-explanatory. It's focusing on your nutrition. So, in order to gain muscle, it's important to consume enough calories and macronutrients, including protein, carbohydrates, and healthy fats. So, a balanced diet should include a variety of nutrient dense foods, such as lean proteins, whole grains, fruits and vegetables, and healthy fats. So, again, you know, I mean, you've likely heard this before. Nutrition is essential. If you may be doing really great at the gym and you may be focusing on everything you need to focus on, but you still have to be critically aware of your nutrition and what you're doing outside of the gym because it's going to be detrimental. And if you're not focused on your nutrition, it's just basically going to cancel out what you do at the gym, pretty much. I know it sounds bad to say, but it just does because you've got to have a balance between the two. That's another thing that I sort of try to keep in mind when it comes to if you have a specific goal, when you're focusing on this muscle gain goal, or you're focusing on fat loss, you have to have a balance between your workouts and your nutrition. It's a part of the process. So whatever you do, you've got to be balanced inside the gym and outside the gym. It's a balance between the two is basically what it means to reach your goal. So, you know, and I have with my program, there's an app that I use that focuses a little bit on the nutrition aspect. But what you want to do is keep track of your calories, your macronutrients. Focusing on those macros is a big part of it, which is your protein, carbs, and fats. That's a key part to keep track of, especially related to muscle gain. So, you know, it's all just focusing on that nutrient dense foods, lean proteins, things of that nature. So, when you have your workout designed sort of together and you know what workouts you're doing, then you also need to focus on your nutrition outside of the gym as well. Or, yeah, of course, your nutrition is outside the gym anyways, but you need to have a balance between the two. So, another thing too is there's another part of it outside the gym that you need to keep in mind is your sleep and rest. So I've mentioned this multiple times. I've had live streams where I've talked about this in particular. But sleep and rest plays a key role into not only muscle gain. So again, I am focusing on muscle gain today, but it does play a role in fat loss too, and to influence, you sort of losing fat. It also contributes to muscle gain because you need to have recovery for your muscles to repair. So adequate rest and recovery are essential for muscle growth. Make sure to get enough sleep each night, typically around 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and take rest days to allow your muscles to recover. So rest days are important, and having the adequate amount of sleep is also important. One thing that's a mistake that I made when I had started, getting into weightlifting is that I focused so much on the workout aspect and I sort of neglected what I was supposed to do outside of the gym. So that's what I'm trying to explain to you guys today, especially when you're focusing on muscle gain, is you can't just focus primarily on the gym. You have to also focus on what you're doing outside of the gym. And that goes into nutrition as well as your recovery aspect of it. And you need to have rest days for your muscles to repair. That's the whole point of rest days, is so that you can help to build muscles, like you can help with that muscle gain process because with that with recovery, your muscles are using that recovery time to rebuild themselves and that's how you get bigger muscles. So then when you go back into a workout, your muscle's going to repair again, it's going to build back. So that's something to keep in mind. Recovery is just as essential as well. Another thing is engaging in activities. So when it comes to, beyond the gym and keeping things in mind, so you can engage in activities that promote muscle growth, such as taking the stairs instead of the elevator, walking or biking to work, doing bodyweight exercises throughout the day. So even if you're on a rest day, there's different things that you can do to sort of stay engaged, keep your body moving, to help promoting that muscle growth. This can go into fat loss too with any sort of individuals who are focusing on fat loss. Changing your activities throughout the day can make a difference as well. So additionally, you can engage in stress reducing activities such as yoga and meditation can help lower cortisol levels, which can negatively impact muscle growth. So, sort of changing your activities, be more engaging in your activities that you do throughout the day. Maybe, walking or biking to work, doing some bodyweight exercises, different things that you can do to sort of keep an active and healthy lifestyle. That's primarily what this is focused on. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So I know that's a lot to sort of discuss when it comes to sort of muscle gain, and there's so many different aspects sort of beyond this, especially if you're focusing on one particular muscle group and wanting to build this part of your body and this and that. There's so much more that you can discuss about it. However, what I want to take away from this is again to mention to you guys that when you're focusing on muscle gain, once you have your workout routine planned, you've got dumbbell workouts you're doing, you've got barbell workouts you're doing, maybe doing pull up top workouts or exercises. You have a routine set in place. You have stuff that you're doing daily throughout the week. You know what you needed to be doing outside the gym. That's one side of it that's completed. So the other side of it is you got to keep track of your nutrition. If you're focusing on muscle gain, you're going to have more protein. You're going to have to increase your protein intake. You're going to have to focus on nutrient dense foods, getting your carbs and fats as it's based on your macronutrients, as well as you got to focus on your recovery and your rest and your sleep. And then also staying active in your daily life, having a more active lifestyle, not just, in the gym, but also outside the gym and be more engaged, and getting your body moving more. So that's what it is basically just a balance between what you're doing in the gym, what you're doing out of the gym. And then once you sort of have that balance sort of mastered, that's when you're going to get to reaching your goal. That's when you're going to start seeing sort of your progress. That's when you're going to start seeing differences in your body when you're sort of keeping this balance day after day after day. And it takes time. Like it doesn't, you have to keep track of it each day and you have to stay consistent with it. And really, and I've sort of mentioned this with a couple of my posts, but really, when you get into that routine, it's not really about sort of being motivated to work out, being motivated to keep track of your nutrition. It's more about discipline, keeping yourself disciplined and knowing that as long as I do this each day like I need to, then I will reach my goal. You're not going to be motivated every day. It's just not going to happen. It's a part of the process. You're not going to be motivated. I have days where I'm not motivated, but I still do it because it's a part of being disciplined. You have to do it even when you don't feel like it. And you're going to thank yourself later when you consistently do that. You're going to be like, okay, I'm glad that I did that and I'm glad I finished that. And you're going to feel better too, especially like you pull up the gym and you're like, I want to do this, but then you go in and you get it done, you feel so much better afterwards. So keep that in mind that it's basically a balance between the two. And this can also go, with fat loss, which probably what I'll do later on is talk a little bit about fat loss and the difference as it relates to muscle gain. But I'm just primarily focused on this targeted muscle gain, and that is basically focusing on your resistance training, focusing on, exercises that promote that sort of muscle gain, and then your nutrition that's going to promote your muscle gain, focusing on that protein, your macronutrients, things of that nature. So it's just keep that in mind that it's a balance between the two and what you're doing inside and outside the gym. So I know I kind of went off everywhere, but that's what I wanted to mention is that that's basically what it is a balance between the two. And if you have guys have any questions about anything I discussed today, any live streams I've done in the past, if there's anything in particular that you want to learn more about, like how to, have a better sleep routine or maybe how to focus better on your nutrition or what types of exercise are best for building this, building your arms or what anything in particular, you can ask me any of those questions. I have my email, my phone number here. You can text me with that phone number. Just be sure to let me know that it's you. You can email me as well, any questions that you have. So, and you can also, of course, send me a message here on Facebook. But with all that being said, that's all I have for you guys today. Be sure to watch tomorrow's live stream that I'll have. I'll be doing it on YouTube. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about workout design related to muscle gain. It won't be as long as today, but I'm going to talk about some of the different components of sort of building a workout routine based on muscle gain. So thank you guys for taking the time to watch this. I'll have another live stream next Wednesday at the same time. But until then, I will see you guys in the next live stream. So thank you guys.